the Canon EOS C80 and the legendary Canon C70. On paper, they look similar, but in real world shooting, they are very different. I put them through 5 brutal tests, from dynamic range to autofocus and slow motions, to see which one really deserves a spot in your kit bag. And trust me, the result may surprise you. Welcome back to my channel, my friend. I am Kolbasia, and if you're new here, I do deep dive reviews, cinematic comparisons, and real world tests to help you get the most out of your gears. Today, I am putting the Canon EOS C80 head to head with the Canon C70. We will test image quality, dynamic range, ISO and low light, autofocus, slow motions, but this isn't just about spec. You will see the results side by side so you can judge for yourself. And by the end, I will tell you exactly which is the best for you. And also, my friend, I am in a mission to hit 10K subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, and we are not far away this year. So if you enjoy deep dive comparisons like this, make sure to hit the like button and smash the subscribe button for me. Help me get into my goal. Yeah, help me reach my goal. All right, so let's get into it. All right, let's kick things off with the heart of any camera, the sensor and image quality. To make this test fair, I shot the same portrait scene on both cameras under the identical lighting using the Canon EOS R5 EOS RF 35mm 1.8. Both cameras were set to resolution 4K intra frame rate, bit rate 410 megabit per second on the C70 and 500 megabit per second on the C80. Frame rate 25p, color profile Canon Log 2, ISO 800, aperture I put it to 1.8, f1.8, and white balance I set to auto. And to really stress both cameras, I recorded in 2 formats, the XF-AVC and also in RAW. From a cinematic perspective, the differences are not immediately obvious. Both cameras deliver that rich Canon look, clean, details, and cinematic. But there's one thing you will notice right away, the field of view. The C70 Super 85 sensor gives a tighter crop, while the C80 full frame opens up a wider view. That extra space means that the C80, you have got more room to reframe it in post. Crop in, crop out, almost like having more than one camera angle from the same shot. Looking at the footage straight out of the camera, they are nearly identical. Even pulling up the Luma curve, the Vertoscope, the RGB overlay, and waveform in Final Cut Pro, you will struggle to see a difference. So let's push it a bit further with some grading. I mean, that's what we're gonna see if there is a difference after grading, right? For XF-AVC footage here, what I did, I dropped the shadow slightly down next to 0. I raised up the highlight to touch 75 IRI. I pulled the mid-tones little bit lower using the color wheels. Then I boosted overall exposure, added some contrast, and set up saturation to boost the color to about 50%. I applied the exact same adjustment to both clips. And when you put them side by side, there is no real difference. If I run a blind test right now, I doubt anyone could confidently say which shot came from which camera. Now, let's move to RAW. Here, I switch white balance to daylight instead of auto white balance, since RAW gives you more flexibility. In Final Cut Pro, I use auto white balance correction. Then I graded the footage identically to the XF-AVC test. And again, looking at the scope and looking at the footage side by side, it's basically identical. Both cameras give you incredible color latitude, great dynamic range, and clean result. Here is my conclusion for sensor and image quality. In ideal shooting condition, identical lighting, ISO 800, Canon C80, same lenses, you really can't tell these two apart in terms of image quality. Whether it is XF-AVC or RAW, both cameras deliver footage that is cinematic, flexible for grading, and you will struggle to set them apart when they are corrected. The only real difference you will notice is the field of view. That's one. The C70 is tighter, which is great for the Super 35 look. The C80 is wider from the full frame, which gives you more room to play in post, and also the C80 is tight sharper because of the 6K sensor. So in this phase test, it's basically similar. Both cameras produce outstanding image quality, and if you handed me a graded clip, I couldn't tell you which one was which. But this is a perfect condition of shooting, right? The real separation may come when we move into low light later. So keep watching, my friend. Next up is one of the most important tests for filmmakers: dynamic range. The big question here is, which camera let you recover more detail from shadow without blowing out the highlight? To answer that, I shot both cameras in the same tricky lighting setup. A subject inside, seated by a window with a bright daylight outside, a real-world challenge for any sensor. Here are the settings I use on both cameras. Lens, Canon RF35mm f.18, sensor mode Super 35 for both cameras, recording mode normal, RAW format 4K RAW ST 12-bit, in C70 at 410 megabit per second, in C80 at 470 megabit per second, XF-AVC format 4K intra frame rate, 10-bit 422, C70 at 410 megabit per second, C80 at 500 megabit per second. Profile Canon Log 2, ISO set to 800, aperture f.8, white balance daylight, ND filter I set to full stop, and I use shutter angle 180. Using false color, I expose for the sky, which meant the subject sitting inside was almost in silhouette. The aim to see which camera let us pull back details in a shadow without trashing the image. RAW test before grading. Straight after the camera, both cameras look nearly identical. Waveform for both hovering between RE10 and 70. That actually good is means there is data to pull back in the shadows if the sensor holds up. RAW grading. I applied Canon Log 2 to Rec 709 with Cinema Gamut, then stretched the Luma curve. The C70's image looked brighter, but the noise in shadows was much more reddish, and the image started breaking apart as I tried to pull more information. The C80, on the other hand, showed more natural-looking noise, less color contamination. Even though it's noisier overall, the character of the noise felt more filmic and more usable. XF-AVC test before grading. Same situation with XF-AVC. waveform almost identical between both cameras before any grading, XAVC grading. I copy the grading from the RAW test, adjust to keep highlight under 100 RE. And here what stood out. The C70 still lean reddish in shadows, even with the same grade. The C80 held cleaner color, and after grading, felt slightly better balance overall. I did try to push the shadow more in those footage in order to bring more light or increase brightness and highlight, but still, the C80 image looked much better than the C70. I wasn't expecting this, especially not in XAVC, where the C70 usually a beast, but in this specific high contrast test, the C80 actually comes out slightly ahead. So what is the verdict on dynamic range? Even though the C70 has dual gain output sensor, the C80 actually felt slightly better in this test, especially in how it rendered noise and pulled color back from dark shadows. The C70 still did very well, don't get me wrong, but the noise it produced under this stretch felt a bit red and digital, while the C80 felt smoother and more forgiving. With a good grade, both cameras deliver excellent result, but in this high contrast test, the C80 slightly took the lead in dynamic range recovery, and honestly, I didn't see that coming. And I am wondering, the true test will come when we are testing the ISO and low light. Now, let's stress test both cameras where many filmmakers struggle most, ISO and low light performance. For this test, I kept everything identical. Lens is a Canon RF35mm 1.8, format the XAVC and RAW, resolution 4K intra frame rate, C70 410 megabit per second, C80 500 megabit per second. Color profile, C-Log2, frame rate 25p, aperture 1.8, white balance is auto. ISO tested 800, 3200, and 12800. Lighting, just one tiny reading lamp over a book, nothing else. Extreme condition, because if these cameras can handle this, they can handle anything. Starting with RAW at ISO 800. No surprise here. There is a noise across both images. Shooting RAW in near darkness always introduces grain. Looking at the scope in Final Cut Pro, the signal is very flat, hovering between 0 in the shadows and 20 iris in the highlight. I raised the highlight to 27 iris and copied the same correction to both clips. Immediately, I noticed the C80 showed more visible noise, while the C70 held together better, luckily thanks to its dual gain output sensor. Pushing further to 50 iris, the C80 began to lose color fidelity. For example, look at my red in my hoodie. It's fade out. The C70 kept the color intact a little longer. At this stage, the C70 clearly has the edge. At ISO 3200, scope showed a range up to 39 iris. After the camera, both look noisy but still usable. The surprise, the C70 was still slightly cleaner than the C80. I think that was a surprise for me. That really shocked me. After a gentle grade, highlight up to 50 iris, shadow touching 0, the difference narrowed. Both were usable, though the C80 still showed slightly more noise. Honestly, I did not expect the C70 to perform this well in low light performance, and it surprised me. I'm shocked. RAW test, ISO 12800. Now, ISO 12800 is the real stress point. Mind you, The C70 is a dual base ISO. The C80 is a triple base ISO. So straight out of the camera, the C70 appears slightly brighter with highlight around 47 IRI compared to the C80 at IRI 44. After grading, pushing highlight up to 75 IRI and adding a soft S-curve, the C70 reached the target, but the C80 only climbed to about 58 IRI with the same condition or the same corrections. Here is the twist. Despite the lower value, the C80 image actually looked cleaner and more usable than the C70. At this extreme ISO, the C80 recovered better color and less visible noise. That is the third point of the triple base ISO for the C80, and it's no surprise. Switching to XAVC, here how it plays out. At ISO 800, the C70 again came out a little brighter around IRI 21 versus 14 on the C80. After grading, the C80 looked worse in both image quality and noise ratio. At ISO 3200, both cameras look almost identical, with highlight around 35 IRI and shadow around 5 IRI. At ISO 12800, once again the C70 was slightly brighter, but overall behavior was similar to the earlier ISO. So what is the verdict? Overall, the C70 actually performed better in low light than I expected, and that was a shock for me. And especially at ISO 800 and 3200. I know it's a dual base ISO, where it constantly held color fidelity and managed noise better than the C80. At ISO 12800, things flipped. The C80 looked cleaner and more usable in RAW, and even if I didn't reach the same IRI level at the C70. Neither camera completely fell apart. And remember, I didn't use any noise reduction at all. With the proper denoising in post, you could make either camera footage look very clean. But in this extreme low light test, my takeaway is the C70 is more reliable up to mid-level ISO, cleaner shadows and better color retention. The C80 hold it on at extreme ISO like 12800 thanks to a full frame sensor and triple base ISO design. So in low light, they both have strengths, but I have to admit the C70 surprised me by holding its ground this well. I am really still shocked. Next up is autofocus, one of the features that can make or break a camera in real world shooting. For this test, I used the Canon RF35mm 1.8 on both cameras. Identical setting. Format XAVC, 4K intra frame rate 10-bit 422, profile, color profile C-Log2, frame rate 25, ISO 800, aperture 1.8, AF setting, responses at 0, and speed at +1. I tested autofocus both in extreme low light condition, indoor, and in outdoor daylight. First test, almost total darkness, just a tiny reading light on my face. When the light flicked on and off, the C80 immediately found and locked onto my face with hardly any hunting. The C70, though, struggled, often searching and failing to grab focus quickly. Even when I disappear from the frame and pop back in, the C80 snapped back instantly while the C70 lagged behind. Next up, I lit up most of the room. I sat facing the camera. Here, the C80 almost instantly locked onto my face. The C70 was noticeably slower to react. And when I disappear and reappear, the C80 reacquired focus straight away. The C70 still struggled. For this third test, I added a wall light behind myself for more contrast, plus a small reading light to light my face. This time, I let the camera grab the focus on the background first and then move forward. Even my glasses with the glare to make it even tricky. Once again, the C80 nailed focus almost instantly, while the C70 hesitated before locking back into my face. Now, I'm walking toward the camera, holding a reading light to illuminate my face, and then walking out of the frame and back in. The C80 tracked constantly, even when I disappear and reappear. The C70 struggled to keep up with me, often losing my face and raw focusing slower. Out in daylight, I repeated the test, walking toward the camera, disappear out of frame, and then reappear, running straight at the camera. And once again, the C80 excelled. It locked on my face faster or locked on me faster, tracking more confidently, and stuck to me even during fast movement. The C70 lagged behind, slower to lock and less consistent in tracking me. So what is the verdict in terms of autofocus test? In this extreme autofocus test, there is simply no context. The Canon C80 dual pixel CMOS AF2 with that EOS ITR AFX is a massive leap forward. It is faster, more reliable, and handles tough conditions, from low light flicker to glare, fast movement with ease. The C70's IAF is still decent, but compared directly against the C80, my God, it feels outdated. If autofocus is critical for your work, interview, running, gunning, gimbal shot, the C80 is by far the superior AF system. Next, let's look at slow motion. A feature a lot of filmmakers rely on to add that cinematic punch, right? And for this test, I kept both cameras identical. The lens is still the RF 35mm 1.8, format XF-AVC 4K intra frame rate, bitrate 410 megabits per second for C70 and 500 megabits per second on the C80, frame rate 100 for Euro, and 120 if you're in North America. Color profile C-Log 2, ISO is 800, aperture 1.8, white balance is auto, focus continuous AF focus, lighting outdoor, daylight. The only natural difference here is the Super 85 crop on the C70 with the full frame on the C80. Here is the slow motion test, walking and AF tracking. My first observation was while walking away from the camera with my back turned, the C70 grabbed focus quickly and held on to confidently, delivering smooth, usable, slow motion. The C80 looked just as good with no obvious crop applied in this mode. Tracking felt natural and the image stayed clean. So AF tracking in slow motion. Why I did see a difference was in continuous autofocus tracking, right? Who can imagine now we have slow motion autofocus? The C80 was slightly faster and more confident at sticking to the subject, even in a slow motion. The C70 wasn't far behind, and honestly, in most real-world projects, you would be happy with either. So in terms of slow motion, both cameras are excellent. You get 4K up to 120 frames per second with smooth, detailed footage and really focus, right? No obvious crop on the C80, which is great for full frame shooters. Autofocus tracking is slightly better on the C80, but the C70 holds its ground too. So both cameras shine in low light. All right, so here's my final thought, final conclusion, overall conclusion. So after putting the Canon C80 and C70 through all these tests, from image quality, dynamic range, low light, autofocus, slow motion, what is my final verdict? The Canon EOS C80 is built for filmmakers chasing that full frame cinematic look with incredible autofocus performance. It is a powerful tool for narrative, creative, and handheld shooters. The C70 is still a documentary workhorse. The dual gain output sensor gives it the edge in dynamic range. Its files are leaner and easier to manage, and with mixed codec recording, it's perfect for fast turnaround workflow and broadcast. But both cameras deliver outstanding results. One lean cinematic, the other lean documentary. And honestly, maybe Canon should merge the best of both into one future C90. What do you think, my friend? Let me know in the comment box below. C90, right? Great. Now, it is your turn. Which camera would you choose? The full frame C80 or the Super 85 C70? Drop your answer in the comment box below. I'll be reading them and I'll be replying each one single of them. And if this comparison helped you, my friend, hit the like button and smash the subscribe button to help me on my mission to reach 10K subscribers this year. I'm counting on you. I'm already very grateful for all of you that subscribed with my last video. It just was incredible. Thank you, my friend. So, as always, it is my honor to bring you videos. As always, it's my pleasure to talk to you, to come to do this video. And as always, Hakuna Matata, stay safe. May God protect you. May God bless you. And I'll see you in my next video. Ciao, bye now, my friend. Bye.